When the butchering was all over, they hung the meat across the horses' backs and fastened it with strips of fresh buffalo hide. On the way back to the village, all the hunting horses were loaded, and we, little boys who could not wait for the feast, helped ourselves to all the raw liver we wanted. Nobody got cross when we did this. Then the women were all busy, cutting the meat into strips and hanging it on racks to dry. You could see red meat hanging everywhere. The people feasted all night long and danced and sang. Those were happy times. After all the meat was dried, the 6 bands of our nation that had come together about the time when the great vision came to me broke camp at the mouth of Willow Creek and scattered in all directions. A small part of our band, the Ogalalas, started south for the soldiers' town on Smoky Earth River. For some of our relatives were there, and we wanted to see them and have a feast of brown bread, the black medicine called coffee, and sugar, the white juice of the tree. All the rest of the Ogalalas stayed in that country with Crazy Horse, who would have nothing to do with the Washishus. This was late in the moon when the cherries are ripe, and we boys had a good time playing. There were not many boys in our small band, and we all played together. I had quit thinking about my vision. The funny feeling had left me, and I was not bashful anymore. But whenever a thunderstorm was coming, I felt happy, as though somebody was coming to visit me. When we got to Warbonnet Creek, which is not very far from the soldiers' town, my aunt and other relatives were there waiting for us with bread and coffee, and we had a big feast. I was sick all that night, and the next day my parents made me ride on a pony drag, because they were afraid I would surely die this time, but I think it was only too much bread and coffee. I was 10 years old that winter, and that was the first time I ever saw a Washishu. At first, I thought they all looked sick, and I was afraid they might just begin to fight at any time, but I got used to them. From there, we moved on to Buffalo Gap at the foot of the hills, and my father and I went out alone to look for deer. We climbed up through the timber to the top of a big hill. When we were on top, my father looked down and said, "There they are. You stay here. I will go around them." Then the funny feeling came back, and I said, without knowing why I said it, "Father, stay here, for they are bringing them to us." He looked at me hard and said, "Who is bringing them?" I could not answer, and after he had looked hard at me again, he said, "All right, son." So we lay down there in the grass and waited. They did come to us, and my father got 2 of them. That was another happy summer, for the big trouble had not come yet. We cut plenty of teepee poles up along the creeks that came down the east side of the Black Hills, and there was all we wanted to eat, for the hills were like a big food pack for our people. There was a man by the name of Watanye who liked me a good deal. He often liked to tell me stories, mostly funny ones. I still remember one story he told me about a young Lakota called High Horse, and what a hard time he had getting the girl he wanted. Watanya said the story happened just as he told it, and maybe it did. If it did not, it could have, just as well as not. I will tell that story now. High Horse's courting. You know, in the old days, it was not so very easy to get a girl when you wanted to be married. Sometimes it was hard work for a young man, and he had to stand a great deal. Say I am a young man, and I have seen a young girl who looks so beautiful to me that I feel all sick when I think about her. I cannot just go and tell her about it and then get married if she is willing. I have to be a very sneaky fellow to talk to her at all, and after I have managed to talk to her, that is only the beginning. Well, this young man I am telling about was called High Horse, and there was a girl in the village who looked so beautiful to him that he was just sick all over from thinking about her so much, and he was getting sicker all the time. The girl was very shy and her parents thought a great deal of her, because they were not young anymore, and this was the only child they had. They thought so much of her that they had made a rawhide bed for her to sleep in, and after they knew that High Horse was sneaking around after her, they took rawhide thongs and tied the girl in bed at night so that nobody could steal her when they were asleep. For they were not sure, but that their girl might really want to be stolen. Well, after High Horse had been sneaking around a good while and hiding and waiting for the girl and getting sicker all the time, he finally caught her alone and made her talk to him. Then he found out that she liked him maybe a little. Of course, this did not make him feel well. It made him sicker than ever. But now he felt as brave as a buffalo bull, and so he went right to her father and said he loved the girl so much that he would give 2 good horses for her, one of them young and the other one not so very old. But the old man just waved his hand, meaning for High Horse to go away and quit talking foolishness like that. Then High Horse went back to the old man and said he would give 4 horses for the girl, 2 of them young and the other 2 not hardly old at all. But the old man just waved his hand and would not say anything. So High Horse sneaked around until he could talk to the girl again, and he asked her to run away with him. He told her he thought he would just fall over and die if she did not. But she said she would not do that. She wanted to be bought like a fine woman. You see, she thought a great deal of herself, too. That made High Horse feel very sick that he could not eat a bite, and he went around with his head hanging down as though he might just fall down and die any time. Red Deer was another young fellow, and he and High Horse were great friends, always doing things together. He said, "Cousin, I have a plan, and if you are man enough to do as I tell you, then everything will be all right. She will not run away with you. Her old man will not take 4 horses, and 4 horses are all you can get. You must steal her and run away with her. Then, after a while, you can come back, and the old man cannot do anything, because she will be your woman. Probably she wants you to steal her anyway." So this is what they did. They went away from the village alone, and Red Deer made High Horse strip naked. Then he painted High Horse solid white all over, and after that he painted black stripes all over the white and put black rings around High Horse's eyes. High Horse looked terrible. He looked so terrible that when Red Deer was through painting and took a good look at what he had done, he said it scared even him a little. So this is what they did. That night, late, they sneaked up to the girl's teepee and waited until it sounded inside as though the old man and the old woman and the girl were sound asleep. Then High Horse crawled under the teepee with a knife. He had to cut the rawhide thongs first, and then Red Deer, who was pulling up the stakes around that side of the teepee, was going to help drag the girl outside and gag her. After that, High Horse could put her across his pony in front of him and hurry out of there and be happy all the rest of his life. When High Horse had crawled inside, he felt so nervous that he could hear his heart drumming, and it seemed so loud he felt sure it would waken the old folks. But it did not, and after a while he began cutting the thongs. Every time he cut one, it made a pop and nearly scared him to death. But he was getting along all right, and all the thongs were cut down as far as the girl's thighs, when he became so nervous that his knife slipped and struck the girl. She gave a big loud yell, then the old folks jumped up and yelled too. By this time, High Horse was outside, and he and Red Deer were running away like antelope. The old man and some other people chased the young men, but they got away in the dark, and nobody knew who it was. Well, if you ever wanted a beautiful girl, you will know how sick High Horse was now. It was very bad the way he felt, and it looked as though he would starve even if he did not drop over dead sometime. Red Deer kept thinking about this, and after a few days he went to High Horse and said, "Cousin, take courage. I have another plan, and I am sure if you are man enough, we can steal her this time." And High Horse said, I am man enough to do anything anybody can think up, if I can only get that girl." So when the night was getting old and everybody was sound asleep, they sneaked back to the girl's teepee. High Horse crawled in with his knife as before, and Red Deer waited outside. High Horse crept up by the girl's bed and began to cut the rawhide thongs. But he must have made some noise, for suddenly the old woman awoke and said to her old man, "Old man, wake up, there is somebody in this teepee." But the old man was sleepy and didn't want to be bothered. He said, "Of course there is somebody in this teepee. Go to sleep and don't bother me." Then he snored some more. But High Horse was so scared by now that he lay very still and as flat to the ground as he could. Now, you see, he had not been sleeping very well for a long time, because he was so sick about the girl. And while he was lying there waiting for the old woman to snore, he just forgot everything, even how beautiful the girl was. Red Deer, who was lying outside ready to do his part, wondered and wondered what had happened in there, but he did not dare call out to High Horse. After a while the day began to break, and Red Deer had to leave with the 2 ponies he had staked there for his friend and girl, or somebody would see them. So he left. Now when it was getting light in the teepee, the girl awoke, and the first thing she saw was a terrible animal, all white with black stripes on it, lying asleep beside her bed. So she screamed, and then the old woman screamed, and the old man yelled. High Horse jumped up, scared almost to death, and he nearly knocked the teepee down getting out of there. People were coming, running from all over the village with guns and bows and axes, and everybody was yelling. By now High Horse was running so fast that he hardly touched the ground at all, and he looked so terrible that the people fled from him and let him run. Some braves wanted to shoot at him, but the others said he might be some sacred being and it would bring bad trouble to kill him. High Horse made for the river that was near, and in among the brush he found a hollow tree and dived into it. That morning the people were ordered to break camp and move away from there. So they did, while High Horse was hiding in his hollow tree. Now Red Deer had been watching all this from his own teepee and trying to look as though he were as much surprised and scared as all the others. So when the camp moved, he sneaked back to where he had seen his friend disappear. When he was down there in the bush, he called, and High Horse answered, because he knew his friend's voice. They washed off the paint from High Horse and sat down on the river bank to talk about their troubles. High Horse said he never would go back to the village as long as he lived, and he did not care what happened to him now. He said he was going to go on the warpath all by himself. Red Deer said, "No, Tashi, you are not going on the warpath alone, because I am going with you." So Red Deer got everything ready, and at night they started out on the warpath all alone. After several days they came to a Crow camp just about sundown, and when it was dark they sneaked up to where the Crow horses were grazing, killed the horse guard, who was not thinking about enemies because he thought all the Lakotas were far away, and drove off about 100 horses. They got a big start because all the Crow horses stampeded, and it was probably morning before the Crow warriors could catch any horses to ride. Red Deer and High Horse fled with their herd 3 days and nights before they reached the village of their people. Then they drove the whole herd right into the village and up in front of the girl's teepee. The old man was there, and High Horse called out to him and asked if he thought maybe that would be enough horses for his girl. The old man did not wave him away that time. It was not the horses that he wanted. What he wanted was a son who was a real man and good for something. So High Horse got his girl after all, and I think he deserved her. It was the next summer, when I was 11 years old, that the first sign of a new trouble came to us. One evening, just before sunset, a big thundercloud came up from the west, and just before the wind struck, there were clouds of split-tailed swallows flying all around above us. It was like a part of my vision, and it made me feel funny. The boys tried to hit the swallows with stones, and it hurt me to see them doing this, but I could not tell them. I got a stone and acted as though I were going to throw, but I did not. The swallows seemed wakan, Nobody hit one, and when I thought about this, I knew that of course they could not. The next day, some of the people were building a sweat teepee for a medicine man by the name of Chips, who was going to perform a ceremony and had to be purified first. While they were heating the stones for the sweat teepee, some boys asked me to go with them to shoot squirrels. We went out, and when I was about to shoot at one, I felt very uneasy all at once. So I sat down, feeling funny, and wondered about it. While I sat there, I heard a voice that said, "Go at once, go home." I told the boys we must go home at once, and we all hurried. When we got back, everybody was excited, breaking camp, catching the ponies, and loading the drags. And I heard that while Chips was in the sweat teepee, a voice had told him that the band must flee at once because something was going to happen there. It was nearly sundown when we started, and we fled until we reached the mouth of Horse Creek. We were going to stay there, but scouts came to us and said that many soldiers had come into the Black Hills, and that was what Chip saw while he was in the sweat teepee. So we hurried on in the night towards Smoky Earth River. Afterward, I learned that it was Pahushka who had led his soldiers into the Black Hills that summer to see what he could find. Our people knew there was yellow metal in little chunks up there, but they did not bother with it because it was not good for anything. We stayed all winter at the soldiers' town, and all the while the bad trouble was coming fast. For in the fall we heard that some Wasishus had come from the Missouri River to dig in the Black Hills for the yellow metal, because Pahushka had told about it with a voice that went everywhere. Later he got rubbed out for doing that. Our people at the soldiers' town thought we ought to get together and do something. Red Cloud's people said that the soldiers had gone in there to keep the diggers out, but we, who were only visiting, did not believe it. We called Red Cloud's people hangs around the fort, and our people said they were standing up for the Wasishus, and if we did not do something, we should lose the Black Hills. In the spring, when I was 12 years old, more soldiers with many wagons came up from the soldiers' town at the mouth of the Laramie River and went into the hills. In the moon, when the calves grow hair, there was a big council with the Wasishus on the Smoky Earth River at the mouth of White Clay Creek. I can remember the council, but I did not understand much of it then. Many of the Lakotas were there, also Sheilas and Blue Clouds, but Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull stayed away. They talked and talked for days, but it was like wind blowing in the end. My father told me that the grandfather at Washington wanted to lease the Black Hills so that the Wasishus could dig yellow metal, and that the chief of the soldiers had said if we did not do this, the Black Hills will be just like melting snow held in our hands, because the Wasishus would take that country anyway. After the council, we heard that creeks of Wasishus were flowing into the hills and becoming rivers, and that they were already making towns up there. It looked like bad trouble coming, so our band broke camp and started out to join Crazy Horse on Powder River. There were some hang around the fort people with us, and when they saw that we were going to join Crazy Horse, they left us and started back to the soldiers' town. They were afraid there might be trouble, and they knew Crazy Horse would fight. So they wanted to be safe with the Wasishus, who did not like them very much. I was anxious to see my cousin, Crazy Horse, again, for now that it began to look like bad trouble coming, everybody talked about him more than ever, and he seemed greater than before. Also, I was getting older. Of course, I had seen him now and then ever since I could remember, and had heard stories of the brave things he did. Crazy Horse became a chief because of the power he got in a vision when he was a boy. When I was a man, my father told me something about that vision. Of course, he did not know all of it, but he said that Crazy Horse dreamed and went into the world where there is nothing but the spirits of all things. He was on his horse in that world, and the horse and himself on it. And the trees and the grass and the stones had everything, were made of spirit, and nothing was hard, and everything seemed to float. His horse was standing still there, and yet it danced around like a horse made only of shadow, and that is how he got his name, which does not mean that his horse was crazy or wild, but that in his vision it danced around in that funny way. It was this vision that gave him his great power, for when he went into a fight, he had only to think of that world, to be in it again, so that he could go through anything and not be hurt. Until he was murdered by the Washishus at the soldiers' town on White River, he was wounded only twice, once by accident, and both times by someone of his own people, when he was not expecting trouble and was not thinking, never by an enemy. He was 15 years old when he was wounded by accident, and the other time was when he was a young man and another man was jealous of him because the man's wife liked Crazy Horse. We did not stay together there very long, but scattered out and camped in different places so that the people and the ponies would all have plenty. Crazy Horse kept his village on Powder River with about 100 teepees, and our band made camp on the tongue. During the winter, runners came from the Washishus and told us we must come into the soldiers' town right away or there would be bad trouble. But it was foolish to say that, because it was very cold and many of our people and ponies would have died in the snow. Also, we were in our own country and were doing no harm. Late in the moon of the dark red calves, our little band started for the soldiers' town. Crazy Horse stayed with about 100 teepees on Powder. And in the middle of the moon of the snowblind, something bad happened. It was just daybreak. There was a blizzard and it was very cold. The people were sleeping. Suddenly there were many shots and horses galloping through the village. It was the cavalry of the Washishus, and they were yelling and shooting and riding their horses against the teepees. All the people rushed out and ran, because they were not awake yet, and they were frightened. The soldiers killed as many women and children and men as they could, while the people were running toward a bluff. Then they set fire to some of the teepees and knocked the others down. But when the people were on the side of the bluff, Crazy Horse said something, and all the warriors began singing the death song and charged back upon the soldiers. And the soldiers ran, driving many of the people's ponies ahead of them. Crazy Horse followed them all that day with a band of warriors, and that night he took all the stolen ponies away from them and some of their own horses and brought them all back to the village. We stayed at the soldiers' town this time until the grass was good in the moon when the ponies shed. Then my father told me we were going back to Crazy Horse and that we were going to have to fight from then on, because there was no other way to keep our country. He said that Red Cloud was a cheap man and wanted to sell the Black Hills to the Washishus, that Spotted Tail and other chiefs were cheap men too, and that the hang-around the fort people were all cheap and would stand up for the Washishus. My aunt, who was living at the soldiers' town, must have felt the way we did, because when we broke camp, she gave me a 6-shooter like the soldiers had and told me I was a man now. I was 13 years old and not very big for my age, but I thought I should have to be a man anyway. We were a small band and we started in the night and traveled fast. Before we got to Warbonnet Creek, some Sheilas joined us because their hearts were bad like ours and they were going to the same place. Later I learned that many small bands were doing the same thing and coming together from everywhere. Just after we camped on the Warbonnet, our scouts saw a wagon train of the Washishus coming up the old road. They shot at our scouts and we decided we would attack them. When the Washishus saw us coming, they put their wagons in a circle and got inside with their oxen. We rode around and around them in a wide circle that kept getting narrower. While we were riding around the wagons, we were hanging low on the outside of the ponies and shooting under their necks. This was not easy to do, even when your legs were long, and mine were not yet very long, but I stuck tight and shot with the 6-shooter my aunt gave me. Before we started the attack, I was afraid, but Big Man told us we were brave boys, and I soon got over being frightened. The Washishus shot fast at us from behind the wagons, and I could hear bullets whizzing, but they did not hit any of us. I kept thinking of my vision, and maybe that helped. I do not know whether we killed any Washishus or not. We rode around several times, and once we got close, but there were not many of us, and we could not get at the Washishus behind their wagons, so we went away. This was my first fight. We were traveling very fast now, for we were in danger and wanted to get back to Crazy Horse. And as we traveled, we met other little bands, all going to the same place, until there were a good many of us all mixed up before we got there. When we came to the ridge on this side of the Rosebud River, we could see the valley full of teepees, and the ponies could not be counted. Many, many people were there: Ogalalas, Hunkpapas, Menakanju, Sans-Arcs, Blackfeet, Broads, Santis, and Yankatonas. Also, many Sheelas and Blue Clouds had come to fight with us. The village was long, and you could not see all the camps with one look. About the middle of the moon of making fat, some of our scouts came in from the south, and the crier went around the circle and said, "The scouts have returned, and they have reported that soldiers are camping up the river. So, young warriors, take courage and get ready to meet them." While they were all getting ready, I was getting ready too, because Crazy Horse was going to lead the warriors, and I wanted to go with him. But my uncle, who thought a great deal of me, said, "Young nephew, you must not go. Look at the helpless ones. Stay home, and maybe there will be plenty of fighting right here." So the war parties went out without me. Maybe my uncle thought I was too little to do much, and might get killed. Crazy Horse whipped the cavalry of 3 Stars when they attacked his village on the Powder that cold morning in the moon of the snowblind. Then he moved further west to the Rosebud, and when the soldiers came to kill us there, he whipped them and made them go back. Then he moved further west to the valley of the Greasy Grass. We were in our own country all the time, and we only wanted to be left alone. The soldiers came there to kill us, and many got rubbed out. It was our country, and we did not want to have trouble. Father told me all the fighting had not done any good, because the hang-around-the-fort people were getting ready to sell the Black Hills to the Washishu, and that more soldiers were coming to fight us. He said that 3 Stars was on Goose Creek, and that many other soldiers were up on the Yellowstone, and that these would come together and have us between them. We moved over to the Tongue River and camped a little while. Then we started east, and the soldiers of 3 Stars followed us. Our people set fire to the grass behind us as we went, and the smoke back there was wide as a day, and the light of the fire was wide as the nights. This was to make the soldiers' horses starve. Then it began to rain, and it kept on raining for days while we traveled east. Our ponies had to work hard in the deep mud, and it must have been bad for the soldiers' horses back there with nothing to eat. Sitting Bull and Gall with some people left us and started for grandmother's land, and other people were going away from us all the time. But Crazy Horse would not leave the country that was ours. Wherever we went, the soldiers came to kill us, and it was all our own country. It was ours already when the Washishus made the treaty with Red Cloud that said it would be ours as long as grass should grow and water flow. That was only 8 winters before, and they were chasing us now because we remembered and they forgot. After that, we started west again, and we were not happy anymore because so many of our people had untied their horses' tails and gone over to the Washishus. We went back deep into our country, and most of the land was black from the fire, and the buffalo had gone away. We camped on the Tongue River, where there were some cottonwood for the ponies, and a hard winter came on early. It snowed much. Game was hard to find, and it was a hungry time for us. Ponies died, and we ate them. There had been thousands of us together that summer, but there were not 2,000 now. News came to us there in the moon of the falling leaves that the Black Hills had been sold to the Washishus, and also all the country west of the hills, the country we were in then. I learned when I was older that our people did not want to do this. The Washishus went to some of the chiefs alone and got them to put their marks on the treaty. Maybe some of them did this when they were crazy from drinking the miniwakan the Washishus gave them. I have heard this, I do not know, but only crazy or very foolish men would sell their Mother Earth. Sometimes I think it might have been better if we had stayed together and made them kill us all. Dull Knife was camping with his band of Sheilas on Willow Creek on the edge of the Big Horn Mountains, and one morning, very early, near the end of the moon of falling leaves, the soldiers came there to kill them. The people were all sleeping. The snow was deep, and it was very cold. They could not whip the soldiers, but those who were not killed and did not die from the cold got away and came to our camp on the Tongue. They had almost nothing, and some of them had died on the way. Many little babies died. We could give them clothing, but of food we could not give them much, for we were eating ponies when they died. And after a while they left us and started for the soldiers' town on White River to surrender to the Washishus. And so we were all alone there in that country that was ours and had been stolen from us. It was a very bad winter for us, and we were all sad. It was so cold that the sun made himself fires, and we were eating our starving ponies. Late in the moon of the dark red calf, or early in the moon of the snowblind, Spotted Tail, the Brole, and some others came to us. His sister was Crazy Horse's mother. He was a great chief and a great warrior before he went over to the Washishus. I saw him, and I did not like him. He was fat with Washishu food, and we were lean with famine. My father told me that he came to make his nephew surrender to the soldiers. I could not understand this, and I thought much about it. How could men get fat by being bad and starve by being good? I thought and thought about my vision, and it made me very sad, for I wondered if maybe it was only a funny dream after all. And then I heard that we would all go into the soldiers' town when the grass should appear, and that Crazy Horse had untied his pony's tail and would not fight again. In the moon of the grass appearing, our little band started for the soldiers' town ahead of the others, and it was early in the moon when the ponies shed that Crazy Horse came in with the rest of our people, and the ponies that were only skin and bones. There were soldiers and Lakota policemen in lines all around him when he surrendered there at the soldiers' town. I saw him take off his war bonnet. He did not talk loud, and he said only a few words, and then he sat down. I was 14 years old. We had enough to eat now, and we boys could play without being afraid of anything. One night early, in the moon when the calf grows hair, we broke camp there at Red Cloud Agency without making any noise and started. My father told me we were going to Spotted Tail's camp, but he did not tell me why until later. We traveled most of the night and then we camped. After what happened, my father told me why Crazy Horse had done this. He was afraid somebody might start trouble down there where all the soldiers were, and the Washishus had taken our guns away from us, so that we could do nothing if there was bad trouble. Afterwards, the hang-around the fort people said that he was getting ready to tie up his horse's tail again and make war on the Washishus. How could he do that when we had no guns and could not get any? It was a story the Washishus told, and their tongues were forked when they said it. Our people believe they did what they did because he was a great man and they could not kill him in battle, and he would not make himself over into a Washishu. That summer, my father told me the Washishus wanted him to go to Washington to see the Great Father there, but he would not go. He told them that he did not need to go looking for his Great Father. He said, "My Father is with me, and there is no Great Father between me and the Great Spirit." In the evening of the next day, after we got back to Red Cloud's agency, some soldiers came there, bringing Crazy Horse with them to the soldiers' town, and my father and I went along with many others to see what they were going to do. When we got over there, we could not see Crazy Horse, because there were soldiers and Lakota policemen all around where he was, and people crowding outside. Then I heard a loud cry in our own language, and it said, "Don't touch me, I am Crazy Horse." And suddenly something went through all the people, like a big wind that strikes many trees all at once. Then everything got quiet, and everybody seemed to be waiting for something. But it was not long until we all knew what had happened in there, and I will tell you how it was. They told Crazy Horse they would not harm him if he would go to the soldiers' town and have a talk with the Washishu chief there. But they lied. They did not take him to the chief for a talk. They took him to the little prison with iron bars on the windows, for they had planned to get rid of him. And when he saw what they were doing, he turned around and took a knife out of his robe and started out against all those soldiers. Then Little Big Man, who had been his friend, took hold of Crazy Horse from behind and tried to get the knife away. And while they were struggling, a soldier ran a bayonet into Crazy Horse from one side at the back, and he fell down and began to die. The soldiers stood all around there and would not let anybody in and made the people go away. My father and I went back to our camp at Red Cloud Agency. That night, I heard mourning all over the camp. Crazy Horse was dead. He was brave and good and wise. He never wanted anything but to save his people, and he fought the Washishus only when they came to kill us in our own country. He was only 30 years old. They could not kill him in battle. They had to lie to him and kill him that way. I cried all night, and so did my father. Our people were all sad because Crazy Horse was dead, and now they were going to pen us up in little islands and make us be like Washishus. So before we had gone very far, some of us broke away and started for the country where we used to be happy. We kept on traveling north, and we went fast because we wanted to be with our relatives under Sitting Bull and Gull in grandmother's land. It was very cold before we foraged Clay Creek where our relatives were, but they were glad to see us and took care of us. They had made plenty of meat, for there were many buffalo in that country, and it was a good winter. The soldiers could not come to kill us there. I was 15 years old that winter, and I thought much of my vision and wondered when my duty was to come. But I could say nothing about this to anyone, because I was only a boy, and people would think I was foolish and say, "What can you do if even Sitting Bull can do nothing?" When the grasses appeared again, we went buffalo hunting, and I was big enough now to hunt with the men. My uncle, Running Horse, and I were out together alone one day. I said to my uncle, "I have a funny feeling, and I think something is going to happen soon. I will watch while you kill a buffalo, and we will make quick work of it and go." He looked at me in a strange way a while, then he said, "How?" and started after a buffalo. I held my horses and watched. When he had killed a fat cow, I went to help him butcher. Then I heard a voice that said, "Go at once and look." I told Running Horse I would go to the top of the hill and see what was there. So I rode up and saw 2 Lakota hunters galloping after a buffalo across a valley toward some bluffs. Then I heard some fast shooting over there, then many horses' hooves. Then I saw a band of about 50 horsebacks coming out from behind the bluff where the 2 hunters had disappeared. They were crows, and afterwards we learned that they had killed the 2 hunters. So my uncle and I took as much meat as we could and rode fast back to our village and told the others. This showed that my power was growing, and I was glad. In the moon of making fat, we went hunting again. A man by the name of Irontail was with me this time, and we were out alone. I killed a big fat buffalo cow, and we were butchering when a thunderstorm was coming up. Then it began to pour rain, and I heard a voice in the clouds that said, "Make haste, before the day is out, something will happen." Of course, when I heard this, I was excited, and told Irontail I had heard a voice in the clouds, and that we must hurry up and go. We left everything but the fat of the cow and fled. When we got to the camp of our little band, we were excited and told our people we must flee, so they broke camp and started. Just then a big band of crows came charging, and there were so many of them that we could not hold them off, and we had to flee, shooting back at them as they came after us. The voice in the clouds had told the truth, and it seemed that my power was growing stronger all the time. We stayed on Clay Creek in grandmother's land all that summer, and the next winter when I was 16 years old. That was a very cold winter. There were many blizzards. Game was hard to find, and after a while the papa that we had made in the summer was all eaten. It looked as though we might starve to death if we did not find some game soon. And everybody was downhearted. Little hunting parties went out in different directions, but it is bad hunting in blizzard weather. We began to feel homesick for our own country, where we used to be happy. The old people talked much about it and the good days before the trouble came. Sometimes I felt like crying when they did that.